Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for this session. In this one, we're going to be talking about interactive choose your path activities. These are really neat activities that you can do with PowerPoint, where you end up linking slides together and you give your students choices. And based on their choices, they get displayed different content, different answers, different whatever it is that you want to set them up with. And so we're going to be talking all about how to make those, how you can use them, different variations of them. They make for really neat interactive activities, whether you're face-to-face or if you're doing this in a remote setting as well. My name's Matt Miller. I've written 4 books, including Ditch That Textbook, the title you can see on your screen, as well as the newly published Tech Like a Pirate. I'm from Indiana here in the United States, taught high school Spanish for more than 10 years, and since then have been writing and speaking and doing professional development and getting to support great teachers like you. If you're here in person, so to speak, virtually live, then welcome, and I'm so glad that you got to join us. If you're catching this on a video replay, we're so glad that you found it, and I know that you'll have lots of practical things you can take away from this right away. This session is part of the Global EdTech Academy, which is a collaboration between Microsoft and Q. Q is an EdTech organization here in the West Coast of the United States. And to be able to find the Global EdTech Academy, you can go to q.org/Microsoft. I'm going to put that in the chat for those that are here live. So that's cue.org/Microsoft. And if you go there, you're able to find the entire website. That's me right over there on the left. And then you can check out the tabs up at the top. If you click on the schedule tab, what you'll find is a big long list of all of the sessions that are coming up. And so if I scroll down, you can find, oh, excuse me. Sorry, I've been trying to fight that yawn for like the last 5 minutes and I just had to give in. But you can find, there's our session that we're in right now, the interactive choose your path activities. And then you can see there are lots of them that are coming up in the coming days. And with this page, by the way, you can use keywords to search for specific sessions. You can filter by specific presenters. You can filter by Microsoft tools and even the types of sessions. So there's that. And then I also wanted to show you the session videos too, real quick, because all of the regular sessions in the master classes are recorded. And you've got that big red banner you can click on, which takes you off to a YouTube playlist. And this YouTube playlist has more than 160 recorded video presentations. So these are all available on demand. You don't have to just catch these live. So many of these presentations are recorded and then they are shared right here. Like it says here, free universal access to an entire suite of live and recorded EdTech resources, masterclass sessions and office hours, new session recordings all summer long. Yes, Lydia, if you want to paste the link again in for, yep, there it is. That's perfect. Thank you. So if you're here live, you just got that link. Thanks to Lydia. I appreciate you pasting that in there. So you can go click on that. And if you're catching this on the replay, then again, q.org/Microsoft is probably the best place to go for that. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about interactive choose your path activities. And I figured instead of just talking about these to start off, I thought maybe we would actually try one. Now, I also have to say these activities are inspired by a kind of book that I used to love when I was a student. And so I'm curious to see in the chat if anybody is familiar with these books. They're called Choose Your Own Adventure Stories. Choose Your Own Adventure Stories. Note that I called this session Interactive Choose Your Path Activities because I'm pretty sure Choose Your Own Adventure is a registered trademark. So here's the idea behind those if you're not familiar with them, is that you would get a book and you would open up that book and you would read the first few pages of it, and then it would give you a choice. And it would say, if you want to go up the hill, turn to page 47. If you want to go into the cave, turn to page 56. And so then you would turn to page 47 and you would go up the hill and you would read a few more pages and you would have another choice. And you would flip to another part, flip to another part, and eventually you would come to an ending based on all of your choices. And what was greatest about these books, looks like Kimberly's like, yep, totally love those. Is it Vanya, I think? Says, yep, also, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's cool. The greatest part, Carla says, usually you died. That's one of the jokes I make sometimes when I talk about these. I say, if you want to go up to the hill, turn up the hill, turn to page 47. If you want to go in the cave, turn to page 56. And then sometimes I'll say, although you don't want to go in the cave because usually there's a bear in there, or there's something in there that gets you. But the greatest thing about these books was that you would make some choices and you would jump from page to page to page. You would come to an ending, and then when you were done, you know what you would do? Oh, there's another one. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. What you would do is you would go back to the beginning and you would start the book all over again, and you would choose different options and you would see what the ending would be based on those options. So that's what was so fun about these. Now, what's neat is that whenever you use PowerPoint, there's a way to recreate that experience. And so in this session, I'll walk you through the way to recreate that experience, and we'll talk about some different ways that we can use it. So with that in mind, let's jump right over to my slides, and you'll be able to see how one of these might look. So I've already set this all up behind the scenes, and so you'll just get to see what it looks like whenever it's totally set. And then we'll talk about how to make these later. So here's the way this one starts. It says you're sitting in the driveway of your house in Indiana. I live in Indiana, so it was easy for me to write it like that. You're ready to take a vacation, and you want to decide where to go on a whim, just for the excitement of it. Now, let me just stop there and ask any of you, have you ever taken a vacation where you didn't plan where you were going until you left? See, my in-laws, they would take, my wife's family, they would take vacations like this sometimes. And my family never did this, but I know sometimes people do it. To me, it would have been a huge cause for concern and stress because I wouldn't know where I was going. But sometimes people like to do that. They just pack some clothes and they get in the car and they go, okay, which way should we go? Should we go north? Should we go south? Should we get on this highway? Should we keep going? Sometimes people do that. Kim says, yep, partially I do that. It's kind of fun to give yourself some flexibility on a vacation, to not have to go, specifically. There's a little bit of surprise, right? Lydia's saying, nope, control freak right here. Yeah, I'm sort of that way too. I like to know where I'm going. Anyway, so the story continues. Your house is on a north-south highway. So which way do you turn? Do you go left to go south, or do you go right to go north? So, and you'll notice we have two little buttons down at the bottom. Heidi says, that would cause me anxiety too. Yeah, no, I totally get you. So let's pick one of these two. I'm going to pick turn left and go south. Now you might notice, I don't know how well you can see this on your screen, but whenever I hover over these little buttons at the bottom, my arrow turns to a little finger where I can click on. It's like saying that it's a clickable link. And so I'm going to click on one of these buttons and go south. Okay. Yes, it is a link. You're right. And so I click on it and it takes me to this part. It says you turned left and head south. Hours pass quickly as you're driving on the highway with fairly little traffic. That's nice. As you head south, you see a small billboard for a scenic lake. For some reason, it catches your eye and it makes you think. What do you do? Now, see, a lot of times whenever I'm talking about this, I'm in professional development with teachers and we're in places where it's cold. Usually in the fall, in the winter, in the early spring, I'm in places where it's cold and we're all going Forget that. I want to go someplace warm. Keep driving south. And so usually I end up clicking south. So that's what I'm going to do here. And so here's what we get. It says your intuition tells you to stay the course and continue traveling south. After hours of driving, you start to get close to the Gulf of Mexico. You know, here if you're not from the United States, the Gulf of Mexico is a southern part of the United States. You know, it's kind of like it's not on the coast of either major ocean, and it's a place that we like to go on vacation sometimes. You fill the next week sinking your toes in the sand, walking the shore of the Gulf, eating delicious seafood, and forgetting life's worries. It truly is a relaxing and rejuvenating trip that you didn't expect at the beginning. And of course, it would look different in this story than today when we have a global pandemic going on. Okay, so that's the end of that part, the end. And so, of course, once we've gotten through that one story, what do we want to do? Go back to the first slide and try it again. So if we go back to the first slide, what if we decide this time to turn right and go north? You turn right and you head north. You're cruising for about an hour, jamming out to your favorite radio station, and suddenly traffic grinds to a halt. It doesn't look like it's going to improve anytime soon. Do you wait it out, or do you take the gravel road that sits right next to you? So I'm going to say, I don't want to sit in traffic. Let's take the gravel road. And so we click on take the gravel road. Yep, B is going, whoever B is says, gravel it. Yep, that's what we're going to do. So you turn down the gravel road, still seeking adventure. After winding through some curves and hills, you come upon a gorgeous waterfall with a walking trail. You never knew that this waterfall existed so close to your home. You walk, take pictures, and just enjoy the beauty of nature. It's a perfect start to your adventurous journey. The end. And so then what can you do? You can go back to the first slide and you can start over. And then it all starts again. Okay, so this is the idea of the choose your path story, or, you know, like you can see up at the top here, I called it my adventure story. And so this is actually a pretty easy thing to be able to make within PowerPoint. And so I'm going to back out of present mode here so that I can show you the back end of this. And so the thing that makes this really work is using slide to slide linking. This is kind of the trick that makes all of this happen, because you see a lot of times if we click on something, you know, something like this shape that I drew in that says turn left south, what you can do a lot of times is you can go insert a hyperlink on it. And so if I click insert here, then we're going to find, I think that it's insert. Yep, there it is right there with link. So usually what you can do with these shapes is you can insert a link. Here we go. We insert a link on it. Now the version of PowerPoint that I have is the online version. And the thing about the online version is that you don't always have all of the features. So the link to slides, this is something that you're going to want to set up in the desktop version. Now, I've got to give you a little bit of an apology, I guess, here, because my normal computer that I usually use has the PowerPoint desktop app installed on it, and I don't have it right now. I'm working on my backup, which is a MacBook that does not have PowerPoint installed in it. So I'm just going to have to kind of explain this to you. Heidi just asked, couldn't you also do this in Google Slides? Yes, you can. You can totally do slide to slide linking. So usually what you would do is you would, actually let me step back another couple steps. What I would do if I was starting this from scratch is I would, you know, put in the picture. I would put in some of the text, but then I would also draw in these two buttons. Now, if you're not sure how I drew in these two buttons, let me show you real fast. It's under the insert menu, and you'll notice under insert, you have the option to insert shapes. This is one of my favorite things. Sometimes people don't think of inserting shapes, but there are a lot of things that you can put in here. And for my buttons, I picked the rounded rectangle. So I inserted that shape in and just kind of resized it. With any one of these shapes, by the way, you can double click it and you can get a text box. So in that case, I put in turn left, south. And then I just changed the text so that it wasn't any longer Arial. I think I changed the font to Impact, which I can find real quick. There it is right there. And I made the text bigger. And so that's how my shape ended up turning into a button. Of course, I could change the fill color, the background, and the frame color, you know, like the outline around it. So any of that stuff would make it look more like these buttons. But if you're wondering how I made the buttons down there, that's basically how I did it, was that I inserted a shape. And so from here, you can go to insert a link, which is under the insert menu, and you go to insert link. Now, most of the time, I will say this, most of the time, whenever you insert a link, it asks you to insert the link to the website that you want to link off to. But if you look at all of the options under insert link, a lot of times you have the option to choose another slide in your slide presentation. Usually if you're working off of the PowerPoint desktop app, there are some little buttons off to the left in the little box that it pops up. And it says slides in this presentation. And then you can choose that if somebody clicks on that slide, it's going to jump to a, sorry, if they click on that link, it jumps to a specific slide in your slide presentation. That's the magic to make these choose your path activities work, these choose your own adventure activities, is you link from one slide to another. And so in this case, I set up a link on this button that would take you to slide 4, because see, it says turn left, go south. This is the part that we went to whenever we turned left to go south. I set up a link where it says turn right, go north to go to slide 3. And so if you do that, then whenever you're in presentation mode, then if somebody clicks on one of those, it's going to take you to that link. Lydia just asked, that option could be used for escape rooms too, right? Yes, absolutely. Sometimes people will set up an escape room and they'll have you know, a whole big picture of what the room looks like, and then there will be little clickable parts. And so if those little parts are little individual images that you put on there, you know, like a little icon or a little clip art or a picture or something, people can click on them and then it'll take them off to another slide. And then you can always have a button on that other slide that says return back to the escape room. And they click that return button and then it takes them right back. So yes, you could totally do escape rooms with that too. That's a good point. Okay, so you can kind of see how all of this is working, right? With this, it's a story. I've got a text box here with some of the story. I've got an illustration here. And then I've got my 2 buttons. And this button links off to slide 4. This button right here links off to slide 3. And so what happened when I turned south? It's the same thing, right? It's an illustration, it's a little bit of text, and then it's 2 rectangle shapes that have links set up for them to go to other slides. So you'll notice over here on the side, exit and go to the lake, that one takes you to slide 7. Keep driving south, that takes you to slide 8. If you had gone north, 2 more buttons, the weighted out one goes to slide 5, take the gravel road goes to slide 6. And you'll notice for all of these last slides, there's a button that says return to the first slide and start over. Okay, so you're starting to see kind of the big picture of how all of this works, right? Here's the thing with these choose your own path activities. They are kind of complicated if you're not careful. And so that's why I think it's really important to storyboard your stories before you start building them in PowerPoint. You can say storyboard them. You can say make a flow chart of them. You can kind of sketch it all out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put another slide up here just to make it easy for you to see. This is going to be one of my places where I chart it all out. Now, if you were having students make these, they wouldn't have to do this as part of their choose your own path slide presentation. I'm just putting this in here just because it's a place where you can see what I'm drawing. So I'm going to build this thing out of shapes real quick. So at the beginning, think about it. At the beginning, you want to go on vacation, right? That's kind of like the beginning of it. And I'm going to insert another shape. There's an arrow. And so one of your options is, I'm going to put south over here. One of your options is to go south. And then one of your options, by the way, you may have noticed that I inserted a left-facing arrow and a right-facing arrow. I'm not sure if you knew why I did that. See, if I had taken this right-facing arrow and I just tried to duplicate it, which, by the way, you can duplicate things on your slides by using the Control-D keyboard shortcut. Or if you're using a Mac, you can do Command-D. But Control-D will do this. That will duplicate it. I'll make another one. Now see, I could have just flipped it upside down, but look, my text would have been backwards. And that's not what I want. So instead of duplicating it, I inserted a left-facing arrow. Okay, so these are our options. We can either go north or we could go south. And if we go north, do you remember what happens? Traffic jam, that's what happens. And if we go south, what happens? It was, you see a lake. Okay, so we have those two options. And then, of course, each one of these has two options as well. So from the traffic jam, we can either take the gravel road or we can wait. And then from that, we find out that the gravel road leads to the waterfall. And then the waited out, this is the one we didn't see. You end up, this is kind of a silly one, but you end up meeting a celebrity who's like in the next car right next to you, and you end up talking to them. When you see a lake, you can either keep going south and you end up at the Gulf of Mexico, or you can go to the lake and you can take a boat ride. So that's the whole thing basically in a nutshell, right? And by the way, I see that Heidi dropped an idea in here. I would love for you all to kind of like brainstorm and think of ways that this whole choose your own path type of thing, how could this work in a classroom? We're going to talk about some examples of that. I'll give you some examples too. But if you have any ideas, definitely drop them in the chat. Heidi says, this would be so cool to use in social studies for a regions project. They could give the viewer options of different states and tourist attractions to visit. See, this would be really neat. And then Jody just said travel Alberta project. Yeah, and I think this kind of goes with it too. What if you had an interactive map and you dropped pins on the map? And the pins could be just something as simple as, you know, inserting a shape that kind of looks like a pin. So maybe it could be, let's see if any of these shapes actually pins. I don't think so. But you could certainly drop one that kind of looks like, you know, this triangle, by the way. If we flipped it around and we made it a little bit smaller, see, that kind of looks like a pin. And so you could make it so that, you know, these pins are pointing to different points on the map, and you could ask the students to click on the pins. They click on a pin and then it shows some information and then it takes you back to the map. That could totally work too. I love that idea. Okay, so this is basically, in a nutshell, what all of this looks like. I have found that if you're going to make these choose your path activities, it is really complicated to set them up without charting it all out ahead of time. So that's why making something like this is helpful. And by the way, you don't even have to do it on PowerPoint like I did the chart. You can draw it out on a sheet of paper. That's totally fine. Gasp. I just said in a technology presentation that you could use paper. I use paper for lots of things. I'll just say that. So the other thing that's nice to do with this, once you get the outline of it like this, I have found is to number your slides. So right here we've got this number. I'm actually going to change the fill color of this, and I'm going to make it like this light gray color. Okay. What else? Lydia just said, choose a way to resolve conflicts between students. Oh, that would be great. Think about that. If you have an example here and you say, here's what's going on, how could you try to resolve that conflict? And they pick one or the other, and it says, here's what you tried, and then this next situation happened. How would you go? What would you do next? And then it's kind of like a two-step conflict resolution. And then you have how it turned out in the end, and then they can go back and they can see how their choices impact the situation each time. I love that example. That's fantastic. Okay, so here's what I like to do with when I chart things out, is I like to number the slides. So in this case, we're going to put these numbers on each of the slides, and you'll notice that each of the rectangles on my little chart, each rectangle is a different slide, and each arrow is a choice. And so whenever students start to see it kind of like this, it might make the organization a little bit easier to deal with. And so we'll see that this one right here is going to be slide 3. This one's going to be slide 4. And see now, whenever we have a chart like this, it makes it so much easier to build one of these things. So now that we have this chart, we know that this is slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so then all we have to do is we go build those slides. You know, you want to go on vacation, you go to the first slide. Traffic jam, second slide. See a lake, third slide, so on and so forth. And then you build out the buttons based on the arrows. And of course, with all of these right here, you want to have a button that says return to the first slide so they can get back. That's all the navigation stuff. And then once you're done, I can't really demonstrate this because I'm on the online version of PowerPoint, but one important key is this. When you set up those links, whenever you set up a link, either to go back to the original slide or to go to a different slide, it's important that you click on the shape and not the text to create the link. Because if you click on the text, that means they have to actually click on the text to jump to the next slide. If you click on the shape, then anywhere they click within that shape, then it takes them to that other slide. So that's one little tip that can be really helpful. And so then you just start building it out. And then whenever you're done, what the students can do is they can, of course, share that slide presentation with you by turning it in through your learning management system or through Microsoft Teams. Or what they could even do, if you're in face-to-face class, is they could pull it up on their own device, on their own laptop or whatever, and then click present. Have all of the students do that in the entire class. Imagine you have 20 students. And so 20 students pull up their slide presentations on PowerPoint. All 20 students click present, and then all 20 students stand up. This is an idea called the digital gallery walk. Have all of them put it up on their screen, hit present and stand up, and then they go walk around the room and look at each other's presentations. This could be kind of tricky with social distancing and everything, but you know, eventually once the pandemic goes away, then and we're able to go back to life as usual a little bit more, that's kind of a fun way to be able to do it. Okay, so we've taken our choose your own path. We've outlined all of the different parts of it. Now, one other thing that I want to mention too is this right here. This is just one organizational structure for a choose your own path activity. Let me show you another one. This one has to do with if it were a story. So like, let's say that we're studying a, we're reading a book or reading a novel or something like that. This next one that I want to show you is, this one is kind of like a alternate ending type of choose your own path. So let's say, for instance, none of my circles are going to make sense anymore because they're all over the place. They're scattered everywhere. But let's say, for instance, that you're studying a story, and this is something that first thing that happened in the story. And then you can give the students two options. One of them is what actually happened in the story. And then this could be a new ending or a new happening, that's something that didn't happen in the story. And so think about that. We make slide 2 the thing that actually happened in the story, and we make slide 3 the new thing. I always like to use this as like an example of Harry Potter. If you use Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, in the very first story, Harry Potter gets a letter from Hogwarts inviting him to come to school there. And so what happens in the story? What happens in the story is Harry goes to Hogwarts. And a possibility would be Harry doesn't go to Hogwarts. And so what happens when he goes to Hogwarts? He goes to the sorting hat ceremony. But what would happen if Harry didn't go to Hogwarts? Lives his life sad Dursleys. That's what happened. And so now we can continue on like this. What happens when he goes to the sorting hat ceremony? He gets sorted into Gryffindor. So he gets sorted into that. What's it called? Into that house. What if he didn't get sorted into Gryffindor? Then we can set it up over here. Now we've got 4, and now we've got 5. See, this is just another way that you could do this activity, right? What happens if he did, and he gets paired with his friends? Let's say that he got sorted into Slytherin. So what would happen if he got sorted into Slytherin? I think what would happen is Harry would get into dark arts, like into dark magic, that kind of thing. And see, we could continue this all the way through. Now, how would we set one of these choose your own path activities up inside of PowerPoint? Slide 1 would say Harry gets the letter. It would look kind of like this. Harry gets the letter. What's he going to do? He would either go to Hogwarts or not go to Hogwarts. Well, then what would it look like next? If you chose go to Hogwarts, it would take you to another screen like this where he had another 2 choices, either the thing that he actually did or the new thing that students could come up with. What if he didn't go to Hogwarts? You would just make that an end of story slide like this. And you would say he would live with the Dursleys, he would be, very sad, and he would be unappreciated. Go back to the beginning. So it's kind of like giving students the option to, if they're making one of these, they could create whole new endings, which is a way to think more deeply and complexly about the story. And then if they pick the option where it did actually happen, then you advance further into the story and you can create all of these new endings. Is this all making sense? Heidi said with math, it's different ways to solve the same word problem. Yeah. So when you give them different options, and you could do either the wrong way or the right way, or it could be just different ways. Any of that stuff could totally work. Yeah. And see, I really love this one because it gives students a new way to think about a story that they've read about, or to think about history that they've studied. Because you see, all of the things that go through the middle, in this chart are all the things that actually happened. But each one of those gives them a choice, and the students could create a new choice of what didn't actually happen, but what could have happened. And this is a way for them to think, it's a way of them to say, based on what I've learned about the story or what I learned about history, what's another plausible ending that could have happened? It's just another way to think about all of this. And then Lydia just says we could refer to the session before this. Because, okay, in the session before this, I was just doing a lesson design remix where we were talking about different ways to teach. We just picked out a couple of different topics that we could remix lessons on, and one of them was about teaching adjectives. She says we could refer to the lesson before this. Students can choose the types of words, nouns, verbs, adjectives, or each selection leads them to a different picture by which they need to continue the story on their own. Yes, exactly. See, all of that could kind of pull together. Okay. So lots of different ways that we could use this. Heidi was saying we could use this within math. That makes me think of this. What if we used an activity like this to make what was almost like an personalized instruction, giving students personalized feedback? So what if we went to the first slide like this and we gave them a problem to solve? And we said, do we think the answer is this or this? In fact, we could even add 2 more buttons and make it a four option multiple choice. And based on what the student clicked on, they could go to, if it was correct or if it was incorrect, we could take them to a slide like this that says that's correct. Here's why that's the right answer. Or it could come to a different slide like this that says, no, sorry, that's not right. Here, let me tell you why. Let me give you some feedback based on your response. And then this next button could say, go to the next question. You go to the next question and you have a slide like this again, and it has another question and a couple of possible answers. The right answer or the wrong answer has one button at the bottom that says, go to the next question. See, these are some other ways that we could use this kind of stuff. I could even see this. You could do this for a wide variety of things. You could help students with executive functioning. Someone was talking about this earlier about, what was it? Choose between ways to resolve conflicts between students. Something like that could work. Or you get to class and you don't have all of your materials and you don't know what to do next. What should you do? Give them a few options and then give them some feedback based on it. It's almost like a choose your own path story again, right? So lots of different ways we can do this. We've got the buttons that we can set up so that we can link between them. I want to show you real fast. I have a post on my blog, 1 story mini endings. You can find that at ditchthattextbook.com/new endings. And so here's that post. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And this is a post that's all about making, and notice that it does say Google Slides. You could do this with Google Slides, but you could certainly do this with PowerPoint. This post is all about how to make one of these stories where you have one story, but you have many different possible endings. It's another resource to help you create those. And there's actually my Harry Potter example right there. And it has a planning document and it shows, how all of it works. So anyway, if you're interested in learning more about that, there's a whole post about it right there. So, all right. So I think for the most part, that kind of wraps things up. There's one other thing I wanted to touch on real quick, and that is this. How do you do this with students? There's a couple different ways that I think, and anybody feel free to throw in Any ideas when it comes to this? I think there's a couple ways you could do it. One is you as a teacher could create one of these choose your own path activities and then let the students click down through it. Or as a teacher, you could assign your students to create these. And then your students could make all of the different parts of the story and they could create one of these choose your own path activities themselves. And then they could take them and they could turn them into you through their learning management system, like Microsoft Teams or whatever it is. So there's a couple of different ways that these could totally work. I could even potentially see something like this. You could even make one of these for parents. And you could say, I'll give you a hypothetical situation. Let's say that you have different classes in the morning and in the evening, and they all have, in the morning or the afternoon, and they have different materials that they need to bring. So you could put up a slide that says, does your student come in the morning or the afternoon? Click in the morning. Are we studying language or are we studying math that day? And you click on math and it says, today, if you're in the morning and you're studying math, please bring these materials. And see, that way you just give them a couple of options and you display exactly what they need. Instead of saying, giving them a big long document that says, if you are doing this, here's what you do. If you're doing this, here's what you do. In this case, you can just have them click a couple of options and it displays exactly what they need. Heidi just said, after learning how to do it, they could create their own as a part of remote learning. Yeah. Then another day, they could be shared in a collaborative slideshow to try each other's. See, that's one thing that I really love. Heidi, I'm so glad you brought this up. Because what you can do once you're done is you can hit that share button. I need to share my screen again. Sometimes I do that. I don't know if anybody else does that. Sometimes I forget to share my screen and then you can't see it. And I'm just over there trying to demonstrate something and all you can do is just see my face looking off to the side. So here's what's neat. And this is an example of what Heidi was saying. What if you have your students finish up one and then they hit the share button and it generates a link. Now notice this one says anyone with the link can edit. You might actually want to change that so that the other students can't edit, because you don't want the other students to jump in and change things to their presentations. All we have to do is just be able to view them. So we're going to check allow editing, apply. So now anyone with the link can view. Have the students grab that link and then they drop that link someplace where the other students can see it. So it could be in a channel in Microsoft Teams. You could put it in an online document and have all the students drop their links in so that they're able to go click on each other's links and go watch each other's choose your own path activities. And that would be, just like Heidi said, pretty collaborative. And it would be a lot of fun, I think. So that's the way to kind of make all of that work. Okay. Any questions? Yep, Heidi, you could totally share it that way too. All right. So Diane is going, oh, this is a brilliant idea for collaborative writing. That would be so much fun. I think that would be amazing. So takes a little setting up at the beginning, but once you get the hang of it, I think it could totally work. So awesome. This has been fantastic. If anybody has any last second questions, go ahead and drop those in the chat. But so let me do a couple of quick housekeeping things and then we'll wrap this up. For one, again, like I said earlier, this session has been recorded. If you're here live, you can go see it at q.org/Microsoft. There are still lots of really good sessions scheduled. And so feel free to go check out q.org/Microsoft for any of the other ones that are coming up. And then again, go check out this activity, go try it out. I think your students would really love it. So. Okay, well, I think that wraps us up for today. This has been a fantastic session. All of you that have joined in person, you've been awesome. You have added wonderful things to it. And then for those of you that watched on the video replay, thanks so much for finding us. Kim, you just asked me a question. I'm going to handle that once I stop the recording here. So for those of you that are watching on the recording, thanks again so much for joining, and hopefully I'll get to see you in another session.